August 7, 1944, 0515 hours, near Mortagne, Normandy, France. The German sentry heard them before he saw them, a deep rhythmic rumble that didn't match any vehicle sound in his recognition manual. Through the pre-dawn mist rolling across the Norman hedgerows, Gefreiter Hans Müller of the 2nd SS Panzer Division strained his eyes toward the approaching noise. What emerged from the fog defied everything the Wehrmacht had taught him about American reconnaissance tactics. 2 Harley-Davidson motorcycles, low and menacing, their engines producing a distinctive potato, potato, potato sound that would become the soundtrack of German nightmares. But these weren't ordinary motorcycles, mounted on specially reinforced sidecars, pointing forward like the fingers of death itself, were Browning M2 heavy machine guns, 50 caliber weapons that could punch through armor plate at 800 yards. Before Miller could raise his rifle, the lead motorcycle's gunner opened fire. The sound was apocalyptic. Not the measured bursts German troops had learned to recognize from infantry positions, but a sustained roar that sent thumb-sized projectiles screaming through the morning air at 2,900 feet per second. The rounds didn't just hit the German position, they obliterated it. Sandbags exploded into clouds of dirt. The wooden support beams disintegrated into splinters. The MG-42 that had controlled this crossroads for 3 days was reduced to twisted metal in less than 5 seconds. Then, as quickly as they had appeared, the motorcycles were gone. Their speed, over 60 miles per hour on the open road, meant they covered the kill zone and disappeared into the next hedgerow before German forces could respond. The entire engagement had lasted 11 seconds. Müller, thrown backward by the blast concussion, slowly raised his head from the dirt. His ears rang from the deafening noise. His hands trembled as he reached for his field radio. But what could he report? That the Americans had mounted crew-served weapons on motorcycles. That 2-man teams on Harley-Davidsons were executing attacks with the firepower of a light armored vehicle? Yet across Normandy that morning, dozens of similar reports flooded German command posts. American motorcycle reconnaissance units equipped with 50 caliber machine guns were appearing everywhere, simultaneously. Attacking at dawn, striking supply columns, ambushing patrols, and disappearing before conventional forces could engage. The Wehrmacht had encountered something they had no tactical response for. Speed and firepower combined in a platform so mobile it seemed to violate the laws of warfare itself. What German forces didn't know was that these devil bikes represented American industrial might, tactical innovation, and Harley-Davidson's transformation from peacetime manufacturer to arsenal of democracy. The story begins in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. When the United States entered World War II in December 1941, the Army needed rugged reconnaissance vehicles. The Harley-Davidson WLA model emerged as the solution. WLA stood for W engine series, L for high compression, and A for Army, a 45 cubic inch V-twin engine producing 23 horsepower, 3-speed transmission with hand-shift operation. Most importantly, simplicity of maintenance allowing field repairs with minimal tools. The revolutionary idea came in early 1942. Engineers at Aberdeen Proving Ground suggested mounting the Browning M250 caliber heavy machine gun on the motorcycle's sidecar. The idea seemed insane. The M2 weighed 84 pounds. It fired ammunition weighing 1.7 ounces per round. The recoil forces could flip improperly braced vehicles. Yet American ingenuity prevailed. Military engineers working with Harley-Davidson technicians completely redesigned the sidecar structure, reinforced steel framing to absorb recoil forces, a custom pintle mount, allowing 30 degrees of traverse, ammunition storage for 100 rounds in linked belts. The prototype emerged in June 1942, but test firing revealed problems. Recoil threatened to destabilize the motorcycle at speeds above 30 miles per hour. The breakthrough came from Lieutenant Robert Henderson, a former motorcycle racer from California. He suggested distributing recoil forces through the entire frame rather than absorbing them at the mount point. The modifications worked. By September 1942, the motorcycle-mounted 50 cal could fire sustained bursts without flipping or losing stability, even at highway speeds. Production authorization came in November 1942. Initial orders were just 200 units for field trials, but as combat reports arrived from North Africa and the Pacific, orders multiplied exponentially. The standard crew consisted of 3 men: the driver, responsible for vehicle operation and tactical maneuvering; the gunner, positioned in the sidecar operating the 50 cal; the loader spotter, riding behind the driver, feeding ammunition and providing rear security. This 3-man team on a single motorcycle platform could deliver firepower equivalent to a light armored car while moving faster than most vehicles on the battlefield. The tactical doctrine developed rapidly. Unlike German reconnaissance units operating in large formations with armored cars and half-tracks, American motorcycle teams worked in pairs or small groups. They would approach suspected enemy positions at high speed, often 60 miles per hour or more. When contact was made, the lead motorcycle would brake hard while the gunner opened fire. Sustained fire from the 50 cal, typically 30 to 50 rounds in a single burst, would suppress or destroy the target. Simultaneously, the second motorcycle would flank at high speed, attacking from a different angle. The combination of speed, surprise, and overwhelming firepower proved devastatingly effective against infantry positions, light vehicles, and even some armored targets. But the real innovation was what happened next. Unlike conventional forces that held ground after engagement, the motorcycle teams would immediately withdraw at maximum speed, often before enemy forces could organize a response. The 50 caliber Browning M2 was already legendary. Designed by John Moses Browning, it fired the 50 BMG cartridge, 5.45 inches long, carrying projectiles weighing 640 to 720 grains. At the muzzle, these rounds traveled at 2,910 feet per second, carrying 13,090 foot-pounds of energy, 40 times the power of a .45 pistol round. Effective range against personnel exceeded 1,800 yards. The weapon fired different ammunition types: ball ammunition for general purposes, armor-piercing incendiary for vehicles, tracer for targeting and psychological effect. The sound was unlike any other weapon, a deep, thunderous boom, 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 heard for miles. Tracers created visible streams of fire across impossible distances. When mounted on a fast-moving motorcycle, these characteristics created terror. German soldiers had no doctrine for defending against a weapon arriving at highway speeds, delivering devastating fire for seconds and vanishing before reinforcements arrived. The first confirmed combat use came during the Sicily campaign in July 1943. The 45th Infantry Division's reconnaissance troop, equipped with 6 Harley-Davidson and sidecar combinations mounting Browning M2s, landed at Scogliti on July 10th. On July 12th, Staff Sergeant Michael O'Brien encountered a German roadblock outside Vittoria. The position consisted of 2 MG-42 machine gun nests, a 20mm anti-aircraft gun, and approximately 20 infantry soldiers from the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division. Standard doctrine called for O'Brien to report the position and withdraw. Instead, he attacked. According to his after-action report, engaged enemy roadblock at 0645 hours, approached at maximum speed, approximately 60 miles per hour. Gunner Corporal James Martinez opened fire at 200 yards. Sustained burst, approximately 80 rounds, destroyed left machine gun position, and killed or wounded estimated 6 enemy soldiers. Executed hard left turn while under fire. Second pass from flank, 50 rounds, destroyed 20mm position. Enemy forces abandoned roadblock. Entire engagement lasted approximately 45 seconds. American casualties, none. Enemy casualties, later confirmed, totaled 14 Germans killed, 7 wounded and captured, both machine guns destroyed along with the anti-aircraft gun. The roadblock that should have delayed the American advance for hours had been eliminated in less than a minute by 3 men on a motorcycle. Word spread rapidly through both armies. By the time Allied forces secured Sicily in August 1943, motorcycle-mounted 50 cal teams had compiled an impressive record: 47 confirmed engagements resulting in 63 German vehicles destroyed, over 200 casualties inflicted, and 0 American motorcycles lost to direct enemy fire. The term Teufelsmotor Raider, Devil Motorcycles, first appeared in a German report from the Hermann Göring Panzer Division, dated August 4, 1943. The report described an engagement near Adrano, where American motorcycle units equipped with heavy automatic weapons attacked supply convoy. Speed and firepower created impression of much larger force. Convoy, abandoned vehicles, and scattered. The Italian campaign's mountainous terrain seemed unlikely for motorcycle operations. German commanders believed confined spaces would neutralize the American speed advantage. They were wrong. The restricted terrain multiplied the effectiveness of motorcycle-mounted 50s. On narrow mountain roads, a single motorcycle could block an entire convoy. The 50 cal's ability to penetrate light armor meant even German half-tracks and armored cars were vulnerable in confined spaces where they couldn't maneuver. Lieutenant Colonel Friedrich Weber, commanding a battalion of the 26th Panzer Division, recorded his experience in a letter later captured by American forces, October 15, 1943, near Cassino. Our supply column, 12 trucks and 3 half-tracks, was ambushed in a narrow defile by what appeared to be American motorcycles. The sound was terrifying, unlike anything I have experienced. Heavy machine gun fire that seemed to come from everywhere simultaneously. In reality, it was perhaps 2 or 3 motorcycles, but the acoustic effect in the mountains made it impossible to determine numbers or positions. We lost 4 trucks, 1 half-track, and 17 men in less than 2 minutes. The Americans disappeared before we could organize pursuit. The production miracle was occurring in Milwaukee. In 1941, Harley-Davidson produced 11,000 motorcycles annually. By 1943, military production exceeded 18,000 units. Each WLA required 1,000 individual parts. Military specifications added blackout lighting, skid plates, heavy-duty tires, weapon scabbards. The specialized weapon sidecars demanded precision engineering, reinforced frames, custom pintle mounts, shock absorption systems, careful weight distribution. At peak efficiency, final assembly took 4 hours and 12 minutes from bare frame to completed motorcycle. Every motorcycle underwent a 10-mile test ride and 30-minute full-throttle engine test. Rejection rates stayed below 3%. By late 1943, Harley-Davidson produced 90 WLA motorcycles daily, 6 days a week. 15% received heavy weapon sidecars, approximately 80 per week. Total production: 88,337 WLA motorcycles for military service. Approximately 12,400 specialized heavy weapon sidecars. Peak workforce exceeded 3,800 workers, 42% women. Women workers would have shocked German observers who believed women incapable of precision manufacturing. Yet women at Harley-Davidson often exceeded male workers in quality and productivity, particularly in precision machining, electrical work, and assembly requiring manual dexterity and attention to detail. The D-Day invasion, June 6, 1944, brought Devil bikes to the European theater in force. The initial assault waves included 64 motorcycle reconnaissance teams, each consisting of 2 Harley-Davidsons, one with a sidecar-mounted 50 cal, one with standard sidecar for ammunition and supplies. Their mission was critical. Race ahead of main forces to secure key crossroads, identify German positions, establish communication lines. The terrain of Normandy, with its infamous hedgerows, bocage country, where every field was surrounded by ancient earthen walls topped with dense vegetation, seemed to favor defenders. The narrow lanes created natural choke points where German forces could establish devastating ambushes. Yet motorcycle teams turned hedgerows into advantages. Their small size allowed them to navigate lanes where larger vehicles struggled. Their speed meant they could break contact from ambushes before German forces could react. Most importantly, the 50 cal's firepower could blast through the hedgerow walls themselves. At ranges under 100 yards, sustained fire punched through 3 feet of earth and vegetation, eliminating German positions that thought themselves safe. Sergeant William McCarthy of the 4th Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron described a typical engagement. June 14th, we were probing towards St. Lo when we took fire from a hedgerow position, maybe 80 yards ahead. My gunner, Corporal Davis, put a 60-round burst into that hedgerow. The 50 cal just ate through that dirt and vegetation. We saw pieces of the German gun and crew flying into the air behind the wall. Didn't even need to get off the bike, just pointed and shot our way through. This ability to provide instant, overwhelming fire support made motorcycle teams invaluable to advancing infantry. A unit pinned down by a German machine gun no longer needed to wait for artillery or armor. They called for the devil bikes, which could arrive in minutes and eliminate the position in seconds. The German response evolved from desperation. Unable to match American motorcycles' speed or firepower, Wehrmacht forces adapted anti-armor tactics. Panzerfaust teams positioned along likely routes. S-mines, bouncing Bettys, were deployed on roads. Artillery units pre-registered fire on crossroads. Yet for every German countermeasure, American tactics evolved. Motorcycle teams traveled in larger groups of 4 to 6 bikes. They operated at night when their tracer rounds became psychological weapons, streams of fire appearing from darkness. The Battle of the Bulge, Hitler's desperate winter offensive, launched December 16, 1944, tested motorcycle reconnaissance units under the worst possible conditions: snow, ice, freezing temperatures, and German forces attacking with surprise and overwhelming local superiority. Yet the devil bikes proved crucial in the chaotic early days. When the 106th Infantry Division was surrounded, motorcycle teams from the 7th Armored Division raced through German lines to establish contact. They couldn't extract the surrounded troops, but their reports allowed artillery to provide support and airdrops to deliver supplies. At Bastogne, the famous encircled position, 4 motorcycle teams were trapped inside the perimeter with the 101st Airborne Division. Unable to use their mobility advantage, they converted their bikes into static heavy weapons positions. The sidecar-mounted 50s were dismounted and placed in defensive positions around the town's perimeter. During the German attacks on December the 25th and the 26th, these heavy machine guns proved invaluable. Their range and penetrating power stopped German infantry attacks that might have broken through American lines. Staff Sergeant Donald Anderson, whose motorcycle team had been caught in Bastogne, described the defensive action. They came at us in waves, Volksgrenadiers supported by a few Panthers. We couldn't stop the tanks, but we sure as hell could stop the infantry. The 50 cal would reach out 800, 900 yards and just mow them down. I saw one burst hit a German squad trying to advance across open ground. All 8 men went down like someone cut strings on puppets. After a few of those bursts, the Germans stopped trying to advance in the open. But it was during the American counterattack that motorcycle teams truly proved their worth. As Patton's Third Army drove north to relieve Bastogne, motorcycle reconnaissance teams raced ahead of the armored columns. Their speed allowed them to identify German positions hours before the main force arrived, giving American artillery time to prepare fire missions. On January 8, 1945, as German forces retreated from the Bulge, motorcycle teams from multiple units coordinated the largest single-mounted operation of the campaign. 32 Harley-Davidsons, 16 with sidecar-mounted 50s, conducted a sweep north from Bastogne toward Houffalize. They moved in 4 columns, covering parallel roads, maintaining radio contact. Over a 12-hour period, this relatively small force, 96 men total, engaged and destroyed, or scattered, 17 separate German units. The after-action reports documented 53 vehicles destroyed, including 12 half-tracks, 3 Panzerfeuilles abandoned by their crews when the motorcycles' 50 cals penetrated their rear armor, approximately 320 German casualties. American losses totaled 4 motorcycles, damaged by artillery. All crews recovered, and 11 wounded. None killed. The kill ratio, approximately 30 to 1, demonstrated the weapon system's devastating effectiveness. If you're enjoying this deep dive into World War II history that most people never learn about, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We bring you these forgotten stories of American ingenuity and combat effectiveness every week. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss the next video where we'll explore more secret weapons and tactics that changed warfare forever. After the war, extensive interviews with captured Wehrmacht officers revealed the psychological impact of the devil bikes. Oberst Heinrich Strauss, former commander of the 352nd Infantry Division, testified during Allied debriefings. The American motorcycle units were more feared by my men than their tanks. A tank we could hear coming, we could prepare anti-tank defenses. The motorcycles appeared from nowhere, destroyed positions with their heavy weapons, and vanished before we could respond. My soldiers called them Geisterjäger, ghost hunters, because they hunted us like ghosts. Major Klaus Dietrich, intelligence officer for 5th Panzer Army, provided tactical analysis. American reconnaissance motorcycles, particularly those equipped with heavy-caliber machine guns, represented a capability we had no counter for. Our own motorcycle units used light weapons. The Americans had weaponized the motorcycle platform in ways we never considered. A single American motorcycle team could deliver more firepower than a German infantry squad, while moving 3 times faster. The technical sophistication exceeded what most people realized. The Browning M2 machine gun weighed 84 pounds. Add the specialized pintle mount, 32 pounds. Ammunition, typically 200 rounds in linked belts, 47 pounds. The sidecar's reinforced frame and mounting system, 90 pounds. Total additional weight on the sidecar side, approximately 253 pounds. This asymmetric loading required careful counterbalancing through suspension modifications, strengthening right-side fork springs, adjusting frame geometry, modifying transmission gearing. The result was a vehicle that could maintain speeds up to 65 miles per hour on good roads, 40 miles per hour cross-country, while carrying enough firepower to destroy light armored vehicles. The ammunition types available for the 50 cal added versatility: M2 ball, standard anti-personnel, M8 armor-piercing incendiary for vehicles and fortifications, M20 armor-piercing incendiary tracer for targeting, M1 tracer for observation and psychological effect. Typical combat loads mixed these types. Every 5th round a tracer providing visible trajectory. Every 3rd round armor-piercing incendiary maximizing anti-vehicle capability. Remaining rounds ball ammunition. The sound signature became a psychological weapon itself. The cyclic rate, approximately 450 to 550 rounds per minute, created a distinctive booming rhythm. Unlike the buzz-saw sound of German MG-42s firing at 1,200 rounds per minute, the 50 cal had a deep, resonating boom that could be felt in the chest at close range. German soldiers learned to recognize this sound instantly. When they heard that boom, they knew the devil bikes had arrived. The training program for motorcycle weapons teams was intensive. At Fort Riley, Kansas, the Cavalry School established a dedicated 4-week course in February 1943, covering motorcycle operation, high-speed maneuvering, cross-country navigation, weapons training on the 50 caliber, integrated platform operation including firing while mounted, and tactical doctrine for reconnaissance and engagement. The failure rate exceeded 30%. Not everyone could master the skills required. Driving a heavily loaded motorcycle at high speeds over rough terrain while your gunner fired a weapon generating massive recoil, forces demanded coordination, nerve, and physical capability that many soldiers simply didn't possess. The tactical employment doctrine evolved throughout the war. Early use emphasized pure reconnaissance, scout, and report. Mid-war doctrine shifted to armed reconnaissance, engage targets of opportunity. Late war doctrine embraced offensive reconnaissance, destroy or disrupt enemy positions, create opportunities for main force exploitation. This evolution reflected growing confidence in the weapon system's capabilities. During the Rhine crossing in March 1945, motorcycle teams from the 9th Armored Division were among the first American forces to cross the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen. Their mission was to establish a security perimeter on the far side, preventing German demolition teams from destroying the bridge. Staff Sergeant Raymond Morrison's team, consisting of 3 motorcycles with 2 mounting 50 cals, crossed the bridge at 12:37 hours on March 7th. German forces on the eastern bank, disorganized and shocked that the bridge hadn't been destroyed, attempted to set up defensive positions. Morrison's after-action report was characteristically brief. Crossed bridge, engaged enemy infantry, attempting to establish firing positions at eastern approach. Sustained fire from both 50s, estimated 150 rounds total, scattered enemy forces. Secured perimeter 300 yards from bridge. American casualties, none. This action, 3 men on motorcycles securing a bridgehead that would allow thousands of American troops to pour into Germany, exemplified the outsized impact of the Devil Bikes. The final statistics compiled after VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, May 8, 1945, revealed the comprehensive impact. Total engagements by motorcycle-mounted weapons teams approximately 4,800 documented encounters. Confirmed enemy vehicles destroyed, over 1,200. Estimated enemy casualties inflicted, over 8,000 killed or wounded. American motorcycle teams lost to enemy action, 317 bikes destroyed or damaged beyond repair. American personnel casualties, 793 wounded, 89 killed. The overall casualty exchange ratio, approximately 10-1 in favor of American forces, was remarkable for a reconnaissance force operating head of mainline units. Soviet forces received 7,000 Harley-Davidson motorcycles under Lend-Lease. Photographic evidence shows Soviet use of sidecar-mounted weapons, including 50 calibers, PTRS anti-tank rifles, and light mortars. The Soviets, practical to the extreme, viewed the motorcycle as a weapons platform and mounted whatever heavy weapon served their immediate tactical needs. British forces, traditional users of motorcycles for dispatch duties, were initially skeptical of the American weapons mounting concept. Yet units that received Harley-Davidson combinations under Lend-Lease quickly became converts. The British Eighth Army in Italy employed motorcycle weapons teams for flank security and rapid counterattack. Their reports noted that American motorcycles' reliability exceeded British-manufactured equivalents. A tactical directive from Wehrmacht High Command, dated March 7, 1945, specifically addressed countering enemy motorcycle reconnaissance. American motorcycle units equipped with heavy automatic weapons pose significant threat to rear area security and supply operations. All units must maintain vigilance against high-speed mounted attacks. Recommended countermeasures include extensive mining of road networks, pre-positioning of anti-tank weapons at key intersections, immediate artillery response to sightings. These recommendations revealed German desperation. They were telling soldiers to use scarce anti-tank weapons and artillery against motorcycles, resources that should have been reserved for American armor. The fact that Wehrmacht leadership felt compelled to issue such directives demonstrated how thoroughly the Devil Bikes had disrupted German tactical planning. Before we conclude, if you've made it this far in the video, you clearly love detailed military history. We put enormous research into every script to bring you the facts others miss. Show your support by subscribing to the channel. We're building a community of history enthusiasts who appreciate the real stories of World War II. Subscribe now and join thousands of viewers who never miss an upload. The post-war fate of the Devil Bikes followed the typical pattern of specialized military equipment. As American forces demobilized, thousands of Harley-Davidson WLAs were declared surplus. Many were sold to Allied nations, police forces, or civilian buyers. The specialized heavy weapon sidecars were mostly returned to arsenals, demilitarized, and scrapped. A few survive in museums today. The technological legacy proved more enduring than the hardware. The concept of mounting heavy weapons on highly mobile platforms influenced post-war military development worldwide. Jeep-mounted weapon systems borrowed directly from motorcycle weapons lessons. Helicopter gunships in later conflicts apply the same principle, mobility plus firepower. Modern Special Operations Forces' use of modified vehicles with heavy weapons traces intellectual lineage to the devil bikes of World War II. The soldiers who rode the devil bikes carried their experiences into post-war life with mixed emotions, pride in their service and the innovative weapon system they had mastered, sorrow for comrades lost, respect for the Harley-Davidson machines that had carried them through hell. Many veterans maintained connections to motorcycles throughout their lives. The Harley-Davidson Motor Company emerged from World War II with enhanced reputation. The company that had produced nearly 90,000 military motorcycles, many equipped with the most fearsome motorcycle weapon system ever devised, leveraged this credibility into post-war market dominance. The distinctive V-twin engine sound, the rugged reliability, the association with American toughness, all stemmed partly from wartime service. German veterans interviewed decades after the war maintained consistent recollections. Friedrich Weber recalled in a 1978 interview, "The sound was unforgettable. That deep rumble of the engines, then the booming of those heavy guns. When you heard it, you knew to get down immediately or die. We feared those motorcycles more than we feared American tanks in many situations. The tanks we could hear coming from far away. The motorcycles gave us seconds." This testimony from enemy forces provided perhaps the most honest assessment of the weapon system's effectiveness. When your opponents decades later still remember with fear and respect the weapon that hunted them, you know it was truly revolutionary. Modern military analysts studying the motorcycle weapons program recognize it as an early example of asymmetric warfare tactics. A relatively small investment in modified motorcycles and trained crews created a capability that forced enemy forces to divert significant resources to counter. Every Panzerfaust used against a motorcycle was one unavailable against an American Sherman tank. The total program cost revealed remarkable return on investment: 12,423 heavy weapon sidecars at approximately $600 per unit, $7 million. $453,800. Training, facilities, and personnel, approximately $2 million. Ammunition and support estimated $4 million. Total program cost, approximately $13.5 million. This relatively modest investment, less than the cost of a single heavy cruiser, produced a weapon system that influenced operations across 2 theaters and forced enemy tactical changes throughout the war's final years. The human cost, 89 killed, 793 wounded, was tragically significant. Yet, in the brutal arithmetic of warfare, these casualties represented a fraction of what would have been lost without the reconnaissance and firepower advantages the Devil bikes provided. The story of the Devil bikes ultimately represents American military innovation at its finest, identifying a tactical need for rapid reconnaissance with heavy firepower, developing an engineering solution, mounting the M2 on a motorcycle platform, implementing mass production, over 12,000 units in under 3 years, training specialized personnel, thousands of soldiers mastering a demanding skill set, deploying globally, adapting tactically, achieving decisive impact. Each step required vision, resources, industrial capacity, and human courage. The combination produced a weapon system that terrified enemy forces while inspiring American troops. The Harley-Davidson motorcycles, with their sidecar-mounted Browning M2 heavy machine guns, didn't win World War II by themselves. But they contributed disproportionately to Allied victory through the unique combination of speed and lethality. When German soldiers heard that distinctive potato rumble of a Harley-Davidson engine approaching at speed, when they saw the unmistakable silhouette of the sidecar-mounted 50 cal, when they heard the first booming shots announcing that the Devil bikes had arrived, they knew they had seconds to take cover or die. This psychological dominance, the transformation of reconnaissance forces into objects of terror, represented a victory that transcended the weapon's physical capabilities. The men who rode those Harley-Davidsons into combat, their hands on the throttle and their gunners behind the 50 cal, were warriors of a new kind. They combined the cavalry tradition of speed and shock with 20th century firepower, creating a hybrid that proved devastatingly effective. Today, when we see a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, we think of American freedom, open roads, rebel spirit. We should also remember that these machines once carried American soldiers into combat, equipped with weapons that made German forces call them devil bikes. We should remember the engineering genius that transformed a civilian motorcycle into a weapons platform. We should remember the soldiers who mastered the demanding skills required to ride, shoot, and fight from these unique vehicles. Most importantly, we should remember that American innovation, industrial capacity, and individual courage combined to create weapons and tactics that enemy forces, even decades later, recalled with fear and respect. The Devil Bikes rode through World War II, leaving a trail of destroyed enemy positions, disrupted supply lines, and shattered enemy morale. They proved that sometimes the most effective weapon isn't the biggest or most heavily armored, but the one that strikes where enemies don't expect, with force they can't match and speed they can't counter. When they put 50 caliber Browning machine guns on Harley-Davidson motorcycles, they created more than a weapon system. They created a legend. The Germans called them devil bikes, and with good reason. Those motorcycles, those guns, and the men who rode them into combat earned that name through hundreds of engagements across multiple theaters. They earned it through innovation that turned a reconnaissance vehicle into a combat weapon. They earned it through the courage of soldiers who rode into danger mounted on machines that offered speed instead of armor, firepower instead of protection. The thunder of those Harley-Davidson engines, the boom of those 50 caliber guns, echoed across the battlefields of World War II as the sound of American ingenuity, industrial might, and warrior spirit. The devil bikes had arrived, and the outcome of the war shifted every time they did. Their story deserves to be told, remembered, and honored as an example of what free people can achieve when they combine creativity, capability, and courage in defense of liberty. The Germans learned to fear the sound of those engines. History should remember why.